Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Victor Adair. He's co-founder of the Polar Futures Group. He's senior vice president and derivatives portfolio manager at PI Financial in Vancouver. His website, polarfuturesgroup.com. Welcome back to the show, Victor.
Thanks, Jim. Glad to be here.
Stock markets have been hitting new highs. What's behind it?
It seems like every day we're making new all-time highs on the stock market, but it's not just in America. I mean, it's all around the world. Stock markets are rising. I think the total capitalization, if you add up the value of all the stocks and on all of the stock exchanges around the world, is around $80 trillion now. That's way more than a double from where we were just a few years ago. But I think some of the phenomena about it is that as people see the rally going on, they're reaching for yield. That's my term. They're looking for some other thing that they can pick up. So we're seeing now volatility is at record lows. Credit spreads are really narrow. And just to be colloquial about it, people are going and buying stocks in countries that they couldn't find on a map. It's just that sort of thing. There's been all kinds of smart guys who are saying, wow, this market is so overvalued that all hell's going to break loose one of these days. But, the thing is, it just keeps grinding higher. And if you are bearish, I think the only thing you can do is, if you own some stocks, sell them. But to be short here just looks, it looks like it should be a layup, but it ain't over till a fat lady sings, as they say. So I would not short this market. You just got to watch it and be amazed.
What's the reasoning behind this record high market?
Well, there's been an incredible correlation between if you plot the prices of the stock market and then plot the amount of money and the timing of the money that's been put in to the markets by the various central banks around the world, that runs to about $15 trillion worth of quantitative easing in the last few years. I mean, they just look like the same thing. So certainly the accommodative monetary policies that the major central banks have had an enormous effect on this asset inflation that we've got in the stock markets. It's clear as a bell to me.
Is President Trump going to appoint a new Fed head?
Well, that's a very timely question. Yes. Well, when we say anew, Janet Yellen, the current Fed chair, her term is up in February. Now, it's possible that he could reappoint her. And right now I think there's really sort of 4 front runners for the position, including her. And, Trump has said he will make a decision as to who's going to run the Fed, certainly before the end of the year, and I think perhaps even into November. That's where it gets interesting is, this is the chair, but it's not only her. If, for instance, she isn't reappointed as chair, she may resign her seat as a governor. So that it could leave, as we go into next year, it could leave Trump with the opportunity to appoint up to 6 different members to the FOMC. It could give Trump the opportunity to reshape the Fed. And whoever he picks here in the next couple of weeks will give us some indication as to what kind of a Fed he wants. And I think the easy answer is, here's a guy that's made a lot of money in his personal life in real estate using borrowed money. So maybe he likes the idea of cheap money and an easy monetary policy. I don't know. If you can find somebody out there that can really handicap Trump, please introduce me to him. But my guess would be he kind of sees himself as the disruptive boss. He's in charge and he's going to shake things up. So I'm thinking not likely he's going to reappoint Yellen. So we'll see. But I guess my main point is there is the opportunity for big changes coming at the Federal Reserve, and since the Fed has been certainly partially responsible for this huge run-up we've had in stock markets, there's big changes at the Fed. There might be big changes in the stock markets as well.
We'll have more with Victor Adair right after the break.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Victor Adair. Victor, some people thought the NAFTA talks would be pretty easy. Others have found out that just about everything that you could argue about, they're arguing about at that table.
Yeah, they sure are. And, it's so political, of course. But I guess the NAFTA deal is over 20 years old. And as times change, maybe just it ought to be changed just to keep up with the times. But certainly Canada and Mexico seem to be resisting the pressure from the American side to do some wholesale changes. I guess the good news here this week has been that they are going to let's call it a cooling off period and rethink things, and they're not going to try to get the deal completed or crashed, by the end of the year. And as a result of that, we've seen the Mexican peso, which has really been beaten up here in the last month or so, when I say really beaten up, it's down about 8% in a month. Canadian dollar down about 3% in that same period of time. Certainly, there's other things at play, but the worry that Trump could get his back up, let's say that, and really dictate terms to Canada and Mexico had hurt those two currencies, and they've rebounded. So NAFTA is clearly a big deal. It's very political. It seems that there is a constituency, both in America and in Mexico and Canada, that says, don't bust this thing. There's a lot of good things come from it. So maybe there'd be some splitting it down the middle in terms of Trump getting what he wants.
Does Trump look at things like a real estate development? You have to knock everything down and rebuild it?
Well, as I said earlier about who he might pick for Fed chairman, I think he sees himself as a guy who's going to usher in change, to use that kind of language. But with NAFTA, he's also the great negotiator, isn't he? And maybe that's part of it. Maybe you kind of come on like the tough guy, and then, the other side backs away a little bit, and then you got more room to negotiate. I hope it doesn't make any sense to me that they would just crash the whole thing. It would be a problem for a lot of people. So maybe it's just negotiating. As I said earlier, if you can find somebody that can tell me what Trump's going to do, please introduce me to him.
What's happening with the European markets?
I think the most interesting thing from my trading perspective is we had the referendum in Catalonia here was a week or two ago, and the fallout from that. The federal government in Madrid seems to be taking a real hard line attitude on this. Certainly, there are places around Europe that must be watching what's going on really closely there. And, I see what happened last year with Brexit, this vote with Catalonia, as this sort of a trend of what I would call people looking to have more of their own distinct society, and that's going to really put pressure on this concept of all for one and one for all within the European Union. And I don't think there's any bigger symbol of sort of big government than the euro. So, all other things being equal, and they never are, I think this I want to have my voice heard kind of an attitude throughout Europe is going to put pressure on the euro currency relative to the U.S. dollar.
Japan's stock market has just taken off like crazy. Is that because the Bank of Japan has been buying up stocks in their 50 biggest companies?
Well, that's part of it. The Bank of Japan has had an ongoing, and I mean for 2 decades, accommodative monetary policy, and they've tried different fiscal policies there as well. But certainly, they were kind of running out of bonds to buy, so they started buying ETFs of the big companies on the Japanese stock market. Also, I mean, Japan is plugged into the rest of the world. Stock markets everywhere are going up. That market's going up as well. There's an election coming October 22nd. Abe is expected to maintain his position, maybe even increase it. From a trading point of view, I'm bearishly inclined on the yen. Well, I've got the small toe in the water here at the moment. I think the Japanese currency can go down against the U.S. dollar.
China, the sleeping giant, their National Congress is huddling up. Are they going to have new leadership, or is it same old, same old?
Oh, no, there's not going to be new leadership. I mean, surprise me, knocked me over with a feather, but no, this is a chance for Xi Jinping to consolidate his power, to lay out his vision for the future. I mean, his opening speech, this is like Fidel Castro, for crying out loud, a 3-hour speech to everybody to tell them how things are going to be. Where it's interesting from me, from a trading point of view, a shorter term look at things, is you have to think that the different markets that have been managed, they didn't want any embarrassments running up ahead of this Congress. And this Congress, by the way, only happens every 5 years. I'm just wondering if there isn't something that sort of busts loose following this Congress, when everything's been managed ahead of it, just to keep everything on the straight and narrow. It's a big event in China. China's a big part of the world. Certainly when you look at base metals, China has a very big impact. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just thinking, given how important it is and how things were up to the Congress, we may see some real market movement after it's over. And it's going to run for about a week.
We'll have more with Victor Adair right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Victor Adair. Victor, what do you see happening with the Canadian dollar?
Well, I trade the Canadian dollar a lot at the very moment here, and this is the day following the let's take a break on NAFTA. Canadian dollar's up about 0.5 cent. I do not have a position. I've been looking for a spot to get back short of Canada. Back in May, or I should say from May until September, Canada ran up about 14%. It had made an important low in May, was doing a little better, and then in June we had the Bank of Canada come out basically and do a 180 in terms of where the market thought they stood on interest rate policy. The language was they were going to take back the emergency cuts that they'd made, and Canada really ran. And the last week leading up to September the 8th, which, by the way, was just a key turn date across a whole bunch of markets. In the week running up to that, Canada ran up 5%. Well, it just didn't make any sense at all to me, but I could see the momentum in the market, and I've traded it since the short side from that period of time. Currently, no position, but I guess my base view, Jim, is I think the U.S. dollar can do better as we go into the rest of this year, and a lot of the time, the value of the Canadian dollar hasn't got much to do with Canada. It's just the other side of the U.S. dollar. So the U.S. dollar is strong, Canada is weaker. And one of the things I'm really fascinated by with Canada is the speculators in the futures markets have a massive long position in Canada. Certainly the biggest there's been in 5 years, if not longer. Why that's important is if the Canadian dollar, which is now down 3 cents from its highs, if it continues to go down, those guys start to throw in the towel and will exacerbate the decline. So I'd be looking for a spot to get short Canada, and if it starts to trend lower, I think it could pick up some speed to the downside, and I hope I can get short some more.
The Canadian dollar is really tied to the price of crude. Usually crude prices go down in the winter. Does that mean we're really going to see a big slide in the Canuck buck?
Well, actually, I'll say this. All markets have relationships with other markets, and for sure, at times and sometimes the Canadian dollar has been tied to the hip with the price of crude oil. But I would say over the past few months, the relationship between Canadian dollar and crude has almost been non-existent. The thing that has really driven the Canadian dollar has been interest rate differentials. You go back into May, our 2-year government paper was trading at a 70-point discount to American 2-year paper. When we ran up to the highs here at the end of the September, we were at about a 20-point premium to American 2-year paper. So the move in Canada on the run up there was very, very tied to interest rates and had virtually no relationship to crude. I would say, however, if the price of crude oil was to really slide off from here, it would probably have a negative impact on Canada, or in other words, the relationship between crude and Canada might reappear.
Gold, what kind of a run is it going to have?
Well, gold there's two major functions in the gold price. One is what the value of the U.S. dollar is, and the other is real interest rates. We had gold make a 6-year low back in December of 2015, and then as we ran through the spring and into the Brexit period in summertime, real interest rates were falling. Gold had a tremendous run, and a lot of people got on that move, and we peaked out around the Brexit time, around the time that interest rates were at 5,000-year lows, and then gold started to sell off. This year we had made a low back at the end of last year. We had a run up into the summer. Didn't make the same highs as last year. It looks a little heavy to me here on the short term. And part of it is, the stock market's doing so well. I mean, why buy gold when you could it's a no-brainer to go out and make money in the stock market, that kind of thinking. Cryptocurrencies are out there. Maybe they're taking something away from gold. I've been around the gold market for 45 years. I don't think it's going away, but right in through here, the way I look at markets, it just looks a little heavy to me. I'm not a buyer.
What do you think is going to happen with copper, which has just been skyrocketing?
Yeah, copper's had an amazing run. After a brutal bear market from 2011 into 2016, and made a low, by the way. And, you look at your charts to talk about key turn dates in a number of markets. January 2016, the Canadian dollar was at 68 cents. Copper was below $2. A whole lot of commodity currencies made a turn at that January of 2016 low. Copper, it's odd. What are we trading with copper? And certainly all base metals have been pretty strong this year. Copper is one of the bullish narratives, to use that trendy word, around copper, is the demand for copper because the world is going to become electrified. Instead of having gasoline-powered cars, we're going to have electric cars, which would create a tremendous demand for copper. On the day-to-day stuff with copper, there's a huge trading in copper in China. So sometimes I wonder, if we're trading copper in the old school way of seeing it as a base metal that gets used for wiring and electric motors, or in the modern world, if it's just a financial instrument of some kind that can be highly hypothecated in the Chinese market. So I don't know. It's been a pretty explosive growth. Honestly, I didn't see it, just like I didn't see the incredible run we've had in lumber here this year. You can't do everything, I guess, and I've been pretty wrapped up in looking at the currencies and crude oil. Those have been my main markets. Copper has had a great run to the upside. I think the financial speculation in China has had an important impact on that. So if those boys ever get a change of tune, then copper could set back a bit. But again, just like the stock market, when a market's running that hot, you don't want to just jump in there and get short because you think prices are too high. That's not a good trading plan.
Victor, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Jim, it's been great. Sorry, I got all wound up. I love talking about these markets.
Thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Okay, Jim.
We've been speaking with Victor Adair, co-founder of the Polar Futures Group. He's the Senior Vice President and Derivatives Portfolio Manager at PI Financial in Vancouver. His website, polarfuturesgroup.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. If you have any questions for our guests or the show, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.